So today I'm doing something totally different than I usually do. I normally record in my kitchen. I know sounds weird, but the setup is really good and the acoustics are fun. It's a big open space. But today I'm recording in my garage, in my like crazy man cave. I'm using my ping pong table as my kind of workspace today. So it could sound different. It could sound weird. Who knows? But for now, I think this is going to be the jam. I'm liking this setup. So let's get cracking about what's happening this week and enjoy. Oh my goodness gracious. It's been a long week since last Wednesday when I recorded. Like a long week doesn't even cut it. That's not enough. Boy, the presidential race is totally insane. It's upside down and backwards. It's crazy talk. I've been, let's just say anti-Trump since he came down that escalator and made that very first speech. I heard it and I said, that's terrifying. It's terrifying to me. And so I've been outspoken. As a critic, I thought his presidency was a dreadful experience, terrible. And his mismanagement of one crisis after another, from Hurricane Maria to can't even get started on COVID, and how badly they botched the response to that. But there's this, like, we're supposed to ask ourselves every 4 years when presidential election rolls around, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And everybody this year seems to have forgotten that 4 years ago we were up to our necks in COVID. There was no medication to save your life if you got it. There was no vaccine ready to prevent you from getting it. There were no plans to get the vaccine out to people once it was created and mass produced. They threw a bunch of money at it to get it mass produced, but they didn't have any plan to get it in your arm. And then I'd like to point out, just for fun, that I remember during the Trump administration being told every day that the stock market was, all time high. This is the best economy ever because the stock market's so good. Blah, 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 blah. This time 4 years ago, right now, this week, 4 years ago, unemployment was over 9%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is how we measure the top of the stock market, was at 19,000 units. Today, unemployment is just a shade over 4. So I believe it's 4.1 or 4.2. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average is over 42,000. So were we better off 4 years ago? By the metrics they chose, yes, dramatically, unbelievably better. But we seem to have pigeonholed that. We memory hold that. The man responsible for mishandling that pandemic then led an insurrection against his own government. And and we watched it on live TV, and nobody seems to remember that. And that's disheartening. I think it's the best word I'm going to use to say. Polls are tight. They're within the margin of error, meaning that this is essentially a coin flip, that half of America has decided that all of the transgressions of this man, from being the most ineffective and awful president, arguably of all time, according to the people who study this nonstop, he actually edged out Harrison and Johnson. Congratulations, I guess, for being the 46th worst president in history. We've just basically said, even though he was completely incompetent, even though he surrounded himself with incompetence, even though his administration suffered 253 different indictments of the people at the top of it, congratulations on that, another record. This lawless, clueless man. Whoa, hey, danger, Will Robinson. I've got my stuff falling from the ceiling on me. That's my fault. This dangerous, inept fool who then led an insurrection to try to remain in power could win. It could happen. I don't believe it will, but it could happen. And that's maddening. It's sadness to me that somebody who willingly has used the word dictator, and you never ever want to touch the word dictator in the United States, could become president again. And, it only takes one day to outlaw the word dictator. It's a sad state of affairs that so many people have been conned by this. And it reminds me of how important the truth is. And I saw a video that was done by a Russian dissident, somebody who had left Russia, who talked about the difference between democracy and dictatorship. And according to him, and I believe this is true. This is the way it works. Democracy is based on trust. It's based on trust of your fellow man. And you trust it, but verify. That's the way it works. You trust each other to do the right thing. And you keep an eye out. And when the wrong thing gets done, you hold each other accountable. That's how democracy works. We have checks and balances inside our democracy to make sure that, no one gets too far out over their skis. Of course, none of those checks and balances are necessarily functional right now because they were designed 250 years ago. And that's an estimate, by the way. It's actually 200. Constitution was ratified in 1789. We need to fix a lot of things, and democracy is one of them. Our checks and balances are seriously out of whack because we haven't maintained this system. In fact, Thomas Jefferson said that he expected the Constitution to be essentially rewritten every 30 years in response to the new status quo, the new generation, the new, they knew that more states would be admitted. They knew that things would change, and they did. They built a mechanism into the Constitution to amend it, but that mechanism is so bulky that as soon as our population grew to a certain degree, it's just become completely unwieldy. We couldn't get a constitutional amendment passed now if our lives as a whole depend on it, and they kind of do. If we could pass a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics, we could change the way it works. We could make our government actually function for the people as opposed to for the oligarchs. And that's what we have in this country right now. A bunch of oligarchs. They're not official, I don't suppose yet, but they certainly are behaving like that. Look at what Elon Musk is doing. Oh my God. Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, who's one of the richest men in the world, decided they were not going to endorse a presidential candidate after they had written up the endorsement of Kamala Harris because he's hedging his bets, because he's got a bunch of business before the government. And if he endorses Harris and Trump ends up winning, he may lose government contracts. Think about that. See, we're being failed by a system that's broken. Democracy is supposed to be based on trust. And one side of this coin, the Republican side, have done everything they can to destroy trust in government, going all the way back to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan famously said the 6 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help," or some nonsense like that. They ran on anti-government in the 80s. They deregulated everything in the 80s, and it started the downward spiral that we're still in today. Reaganomics, as they called it, trickled down economics, where if we allow the richest among us to do as well as they can, that the benefits would trickle down to everyone else. And it never happened. And income inequality and wealth inequality has skyrocketed. And by that, I mean inequality has skyrocketed. The rich have gotten exponentially richer, whereas the middle and lower classes, and no one uses the phrase lower class, I know, the poorest among us have gone nowhere. Middle class has gotten poorer. The poor have gotten even poorer, to the point where there is no wealth being held by the bottom half of Americans. None. When you die, like my mom died 6 years ago, when she died, all she left us with was her debt. That was it. And the bills to deal with her final resting. That is what we were left. That was our middle class mom, who just became poor the longer she lived. That's a sad truth for people. The system is broken, and we need to fix it. Democracy is based on trust, and they have just eroded trust to the point now where they refuse to accept election results. Nothing could be less democratic than that. The same guy that talks about democracy being a product of trust explains that dictatorships are a product of fear. You see that as well. The Republican Party fearmongers every day, all the time. Immigrants, poor people. My favorite is now Democrats are the enemy within. And I saw plenty of highlights from the Madison Square Garden Nazi hate rally from Sunday, which was all that and a bag of fried rice. I don't know what the phrase is anymore. It used to be a bucket of chicken. Do people still eat chicken in buckets? I don't even know. It was all that, baby. It was batshit crazy and gross, disgusting. They hired a roast comedian to get up and do shtick. Well, you see, when you hire a comedian to come up and do a political rally, that guy's a spokesman for you now. He's speaking in your voice. And if he isn't, you need to come out and say that he was way out of bounds and we don't like that. But they didn't do that. He said horribly racist things, which is his shtick about calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, which is just fucking insane. He made disparaging remarks about Latinos and blacks. I mean, it was racist to its core and brutal, awful stuff. And instead of coming out and saying, no, that guy doesn't represent us, we thought we were getting something else. It turns out he had some jokes cut from his set. So they vetted everything that he said and put it in the teleprompter. All that was okay for them. And then in the aftermath, in the outrage, they don't apologize. They don't walk it back. They leave it out there. And he wasn't the only one saying crazy ass shit at that rally. It was fascist potpourri. I mean, gross. Everything about it was totally un-American. It had all the echoes of the last time fascists held a rally in Madison Square Garden in 1939. Know your history, kids. Fear. They want you to fear the other, and that includes now Democrats. I am an enemy within. Congratulations, Trent. You know, I can hide behind my white guy veneer, but I won't. No. What's the phrase? It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. What I do know is that this version of America is not, I never fathomed this. I didn't believe this was possible until Donald Trump. I always thought that Republicans and Democrats didn't get along because we didn't agree on the function of government. Republicans, to me, always seemed like they felt that the government was there to do the very biggest things, which is like provide for defense and to make sure we weren't invaded from other countries and to make sure that there were laws in place and that people followed laws and stuff like that. Of course, I thought that the Democrats tried to do that too. And then the Democrats were the party that was like, yeah, we got to do all that, but we also have to build a social safety net so we take care of those who are most vulnerable among us, so that we take care of our sick, of our young, of our old, so that we take care of those who are born into situations that are less than optimal for opportunity, that we start to change those opportunities and open them up to more people. That's what I thought the Democratic Party was. And I still think that. I think that there's a little too much corporatization, but I think that kind of goes with the territory. And the right has gone like totally off the rails. It's an oligarchical, fascistic, crazy train. They don't accept election results. Carrie Lake still hasn't conceded her 2022 governor's race. Donald Trump still hasn't conceded the 2020 presidential race. They're like, no, I didn't lose. You lost by over 7 million votes, bro. And even in the broken bullshit system called the Electoral College, you still lost there by the same amount that you claimed was a landslide over Hillary Clinton, who also beat you in the popular vote by almost 3 million 4 years earlier. They move the goalposts all the time. That's another thing that fascists do. Today, we're just, quote unquote, the enemy. Tomorrow, we'll be vermin. It's a dangerous time in America, and we are not rising to the challenge appropriately in my mind. I think that the media has decided that clicks and engagement are more important than truthfulness, which is supposed to be their goal. You know, you want to make money, sure, but I honestly, I believe this, that if you are honest, that's where the real money is, in integrity, in trustworthiness. But that's not the direction that they're going. They're hedging their bets just in case we end up with a fascist in charge who could turn the military on the people of this country. That's what he said he wants to do. Man, I can't tell you how gross that is. And for those who say, both sides need to turn down the rhetoric. No, fuck you. No one running for office on the Democratic side is calling for our opponents to be jailed. And I'm not talking about the people who've actually committed crimes, you know, like Donald Trump, who's yet to be sentenced for 34 felonies that any other person would have already been sentenced for. I'm talking about just average voters, just people who don't vote for you. That's who they're calling for to be rounded up as dissidents. This country is not supposed to be like this. Society in a modern world cannot exist like this. We have bigger, more pressing issues than this ridiculous immigration fight. The immigration system is extremely complex and very broken right now. So let's fix it. But the answer isn't deporting millions upon millions of people. The answer is in finding a way for us to build pathways to citizenship so that the American dream can be achieved by those people who are brave enough to try to come here and be a part of it. The success of these people doesn't mean that other people are going to fail. That's not how any of this works. The idea is for everybody to succeed. Why is that not getting through? When one side is desperate to destroy education as we know it, that is purely Orwellian shit. If you can control how children are taught, you can teach them whatever you want. And when they talk about poisoning the blood of our country, that is fascist rhetoric. That is basically translated from the original German Hitler speech from the 30s. Immigrants don't make us less, they make us more. That's the thing about this country. It's supposed to be pluralistic. We're supposed to embrace each other, lift each other up, and build toward a better tomorrow. Elon Musk has already admitted that their plan is to crash the United States economy to build something better. What better? What better? They won't tell you that. This is a dangerous time. I do not possess the self-control to run for office. I lose my temper over these idiotic arguments pretty much all the time, which is why, you know, I can't knock doors or make phone calls. I can do text banking. That's fun. It's fun. Yeah, I have problems with people who they're just okay with fascism. They just think it's okay because their eggs are too expensive, I guess. Buy a chicken, a live one, not a dead one. Know what I'm saying? That was me drinking some coffee. Yummy. I rarely do that. No, I drink coffee all the time. I rarely do it on microphone. I just put all this stuff together. You know, these episodes are for my kids, really, for their future when they get to turn around and go, "What were you doing, Dad? What were you thinking, Dad? What were you up to, Dad?" I try having conversations with actual people. It's hard. It's hard. We are not just polarized anymore. We're calcified. Tribalism has taken over, and it's infuriating because I don't want to eradicate the other tribe. I want them to wake up and go, this is not the way this is supposed to work. I want debate. I want the old Republican Party who's like, that's not supposed to be government's job. You know, they were always about little government, smaller government. Now they want to put the government in every waiting room, in every doctor's office. They want to put the government in every bedroom. They want to put the government in every kitchen where you're having a discussion. They want to change the way you talk, the way you think, the way you educate your children, the way you love, who you love, how you worship. They want to control all of that shit. That's fascism. And they want to be in power forever because they want to control elections and make sure that nobody gets to run against them. Technically, China elected Xi Jinping, and he just made himself president for life. Technically, Putin was elected president in Russia. He just keeps changing the term limits so that he can run again. Dictators don't give up power. I don't think that it's a good idea to try our luck. That's my take on it. I hope you share that same feeling. I don't believe that these people can be trusted. And I know that we're supposed to trust each other in a democracy. But if I am to trust them, I have to take them at face value, and they don't respect the democracy. They don't respect the rules. They don't respect the outcomes. They don't believe in democracy anymore. And that makes me fucking furious, because that is the ultimate sin against this country at this point. Come on, man. Come on. This guy called upon his supporters to do what he couldn't talk the military into doing, overthrow an election. And now he's a stone's throw away from getting that power back, thanks in large part to a broken system. Boy, I tell you, that is a downer, isn't it? So vote. A lot of places have same-day registration. Get out and vote. If you haven't registered, try to register. Vote. Please do not do anything illegal. Please. But stand up. Be counted. This may be your last chance. On that downer of a note, thanks for hearing it out. I appreciate you. I want to do one more episode before the election day of Tuesday. Tuesday's the election day. So I'll try to get down and do one on the 1st on Friday. If not, God, I hope so. I hope this works out for us. You know, one thing's for certain. If Harris wins and in 4 years we decide she didn't do a good job and we elect someone else, I know that she'll hand over power. And I know that won't be the case the other way. So, no. What a crazy thought. All right. Peace, love, Bobby Sherman. Take care of each other. Be good humans. It's the least we can do. And until next time, I love you guys.